when Allah speaks for you. What a powerful thought that is. There are moments in life when you may feel that no matter how much you explain yourself, no matter how much you try to clarify, people will twist your words, misinterpret your intentions, and assume the worst of you. You may sit silently, your heart heavy with grief, wondering who will defend your name, who will clear your reputation, who will expose the truth. And then you realize, if Allah, the Lord of the worlds, decides to speak on your behalf, then no voice on earth can silence that truth, and no falsehood can stand against it. Sometimes the silence of a believer is misunderstood by the world. People may think that silence means weakness. They may assume that keeping quiet means you have no answer. They may even believe that your silence is a sign of guilt or fear. But in reality, silence, when used with wisdom, becomes one of the greatest proofs of strength. The silence of a believer is not empty. It is filled with trust, patience, and a deep reliance on the one who sees what no eye can see and knows what no heart dares to reveal. The world only sees your lips sealed, but Allah sees your heart turning to Him with confidence and your soul whispering in prayer. Allah, you are enough for me in moments when falsehood is loud, when accusations are flying, when your name is being tarnished or your dignity attacked. It is so tempting to rush and defend yourself. You feel the urge to speak, to explain, to clear your name in front of people who may have already decided to misunderstand you. Yet, when you choose silence out of trust in Allah, you are telling the world that your worth is not determined by their opinions, but by the one who knows the truth. You are declaring that your heart is not shaken by the noise of lies, because it is anchored in the calm of divine justice. That is why silence, when chosen wisely, is not an act of weakness, it is an act of strength, an act of surrender, and an act of pure faith. Think about how many times in history falsehood seemed to rise like a storm, only to be dismantled by the truth. Lies may gain attention, but they do not have the strength to endure. Truth does not need to shout, it does not need to fight for attention. It simply needs to stand firm, because eventually time itself exposes what is real and what is false. And who created time other than Allah? When you understand that, you realize that every false accusation, every unfair word, every cruel judgment spoken against you is only temporary. It may shake you for a moment, it may hurt your heart, but it will never outlive the truth. If you remain silent in patience, Allah allows time to unfold His justice in ways that human eyes cannot predict. Your silence becomes a testimony that you believe Allah is the ultimate witness. He hears the whispers in the hearts, He knows the lies dressed as truth, and He records everything with precision. When people lie about you, they may win the attention of others for a short while, but they cannot win against the one who writes down every word. That is why silence is powerful. It is a declaration that you trust the divine record, the ultimate justice that no one can escape. Imagine the angels documenting every insult thrown at you, every untruth spread about you, every attempt to tarnish your image. The pens of the angels never run out of ink, and their records never fade. While people may forget what they said or did, Allah does not forget, and His justice never fails. In many moments of life, you will realize that rushing to defend yourself before people may bring you a temporary sense of relief. You may win an argument, you may silence a critic, but at what cost? You lose your peace, you exhaust your energy, and you give importance to people who may never truly be fair. Yet, when you leave your defense to Allah, you win something much greater. You win dignity. You walk away with a heart at peace, knowing you do not need to convince anyone of your innocence, because Allah already knows. You allow the Creator of hearts to defend you, and He is more capable of turning the hearts of people in your favor than you are. The respect that Allah places for you in the hearts of others is far greater than any respect you could demand with your words. Think about the prophets who faced false accusations and harsh words. They were called liars, magicians, madmen, and worse. Did they respond to every insult? No, they remained firm, patient, and often silent, because they knew that the truth they carried did not need to be defended by their tongues. It would be defended by Allah Himself. Their silence was not weakness, it was strength rooted in trust. When you carry this same attitude, you are walking the path of the righteous, placing your trust in the same divine justice that protected those before you. Every believer will be tested in their honor and dignity. There will come a time when people will speak about you in ways that are unfair, when your silence will be mocked, when your trust in Allah will be misunderstood. But remember, dignity is not in the noise of defending yourself. It is in the calm of knowing Allah is your defender. What people think of you changes with time. But what Allah knows about you remains eternal. Their opinions are written in pencil that can be erased, but His knowledge of you is carved in stone. That is why silence in the face of falsehood becomes a form of worship. It shows your faith in His justice, your patience with His decree, and your trust in His plan. When falsehood rises against you, do not panic. Let truth be your calm companion. Lies are like shadows. They appear long and threatening when the sun is setting, but once the light of truth shines, they disappear. Silence allows that light to emerge. Do not fight shadows with your words. Let the sun of divine justice rise, and you will see them vanish on their own. The one who manages the universe is already on your side, and His timing is always perfect. So remain silent, remain patient, and remain trusting, because every falsehood is destined to collapse, and every truth is destined to prevail. When the loudest noise around us comes not from the outside, but from within our own hearts, the voice of anxiety, the whispers of doubt, the rush of anger, they all call us to react quickly, to defend ourselves immediately, to prove our point without delay. Yet wisdom teaches us that restraint is far more powerful than reaction. To pause before you speak, to remain silent when provoked, to hold back when your ego is demanding to respond. That is not weakness, that is true strength. Silence in those moments becomes a shield, not just against others, but against your own self. It protects you from regret. It protects you from words you cannot take back. It protects you from damaging relationships or hurting hearts. When you think of silence in this way, you realize it is not emptiness, it is a form of discipline, an act of worship, a reflection of maturity. The tongue is one of the smallest parts of the body, yet it has the ability to destroy years of effort in a matter of seconds. One slip of the tongue can break a heart that took years to heal. One careless word can create divisions that take generations to mend. And one harsh statement can cause wounds deeper than any physical injury. That is why silence becomes such a powerful tool. It is the key to controlling what could otherwise destroy us. Silence is not about being absent. It is about being present in the most mindful way. It is about realizing that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every feeling deserves to be voiced, and not every attack requires a response. In silence, you give yourself time to think, you allow wisdom to rise above emotion, and you protect your soul from harm. How many times have people regretted words they spoke in anger? How many times have families broken apart because someone said what should never have been said? How many friendships have been destroyed by careless speech? Yet how rarely do people regret their silence? The weight of regret often comes from speaking too quickly, but rarely from choosing to stay silent. This is why those who master silence often live with greater peace. They carry fewer burdens of regret, they avoid unnecessary conflict, and they cultivate an inner calm that cannot be shaken by the noise of others. Silence becomes their strength because it allows them to rise above the chaos instead of being dragged into it. Silence is also a sign of deep trust. When you remain silent in moments of false accusation, you are declaring that you trust Allah to speak for you, that His justice is greater than any defense you could present, and that His plan is better than any strategy you could make. Silence shows that your heart is not desperate for the approval of people, because it is already content with the approval of your Creator. This is not weakness, this is the highest form of strength. The one who can remain silent when attacked is the one who has conquered his ego, and conquering the ego is far more difficult than winning an argument. But silence does not mean inaction. It does not mean you turn away from truth or ignore justice. It means you choose your battles wisely. It means you know when speaking will benefit and when it will only add fuel to the fire. It means you recognize that some matters are best left for Allah to resolve, and your silence becomes part of your reliance on Him. Silence, in its truest form, is not passive, it is active trust. It is a conscious choice to allow Allah's wisdom to unfold instead of forcing your own. History teaches us that the most powerful individuals were not those who shouted the loudest, but those whose silence carried weight. Their silence made people reflect, it made people uncomfortable, it made people rethink their own words and actions. Sometimes your silence speaks louder than your voice ever could. When you refuse to respond to falsehood, your silence becomes a mirror that reflects the emptiness of their accusations. When you walk away without a word, your silence becomes a statement of dignity. When you refuse to lower yourself into pointless arguments, your silence becomes a shield of honor. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are training your soul to rise above the ego. You are reminding yourself that your honor does not come from the tongues of people, but from the sight of Allah. You are choosing inner peace over outer noise, and you are choosing divine justice over worldly recognition. That is why silence is strength. It gives you control when everything around you is pulling you to lose control. It gives you peace when everything around you is trying to rob you of peace. And it gives you dignity when everything around you is trying to strip you of it. But silence is not only for moments of conflict, it is also for moments of reflection. When you are silent, you create space in your heart to listen. You listen to the whispers of your soul. You listen to the signs of Allah around you. You listen to the lessons that life is teaching you. Too much noise in the world can drown out the most important voices, the voice of your conscience and the guidance of revelation. Silence allows you to reconnect, to realign, to remember. That is why people who embrace silence often find themselves closer to Allah, because in the quiet, the heart finally speaks. Consider how often the Quran calls us to reflect, to think, to ponder. Reflection requires silence. It requires stepping away from the constant noise, both external and internal. It requires pausing long enough to recognize the blessings you have been given, the lessons you are meant to learn, and the path you are meant to follow. Without silence, life becomes a blur of distractions. With silence, life becomes a field of clarity. When the storms around us become so intense that we feel compelled to shout, to fight, to prove ourselves, to make the world see our pain. But the beauty of faith is that it teaches us that sometimes the most powerful response is not in the raising of our voice, but in the quiet surrender of our hearts. When Allah Himself promises to defend those who rely upon Him, silence becomes an act of faith. It is not a silence of weakness or fear, but a silence rooted in certainty. The certainty that the Creator of the heavens and the earth is watching, that He knows the truth even when the world distorts it, and that His justice is never delayed. Imagine the peace that fills a heart which knows that it does not have to fight every battle, because the one with infinite power has already taken charge. When we understand this, silence takes on a new meaning. It is no longer about the absence of words, but about the presence of trust. Every time you remain calm in the face of provocation, every time you choose patience over retaliation, you are in reality making a declaration of faith. You are saying with your silence, I believe that Allah sees, I believe that He knows. I believe that His timing is perfect, and such a declaration carries more weight than 1,000 arguments. This is why silence, when coupled with faith, can be more powerful than the loudest defense. Think about the lives of the prophets. Each of them faced opposition, mockery, and false accusations. They were called names, their intentions were questioned, their missions were denied. Yet how often did they choose silence, allowing their actions, their character, and their unwavering reliance on Allah to speak louder than their voices? When the people of Makkah hurled insults at the final messenger, his response was not to retaliate with equal insults, but to remain dignified, calm, and firm. His silence was not weakness, it was a mountain of strength, because behind that silence was the unshakable belief that Allah Himself would vindicate the truth. And history proved him right. Those who opposed him are remembered for their arrogance, while he is remembered for his mercy, his patience, and his trust in his Lord. There is something deeply liberating about leaving your defense in the hands of Allah. When you try to defend yourself constantly, you exhaust your energy, you drain your peace, and you allow the words of people to control your happiness. But when you trust Allah to defend you, you free yourself from the prison of people's opinions. Their words no longer define you, their accusations no longer disturb you, and their rejection no longer breaks you. You live with a calm assurance that the truth does not need to be shouted to be known. It only needs time, and Allah will reveal it in His own way. Sometimes silence is the most eloquent answer. When people expect you to react, when they try to provoke you, when they want to see you fall into anger, your silence frustrates them more than any argument ever could. It shows them that their words have no power over you, that your dignity cannot be stolen by their attempts to belittle you. Silence in those moments becomes a statement of strength. It tells the world that you are not bound by the noise around you because your heart is anchored in something far deeper, the justice of Allah. But silence is not only about how you respond to others, it is also about how you protect your own soul. Every word you speak is a responsibility. Every statement you make is recorded, and one of the greatest acts of wisdom is to guard the tongue. How many people will stand before Allah burdened not by what they did with their hands, but by what they said with their tongues? How many hearts have been broken, reputations ruined, and relationships destroyed because of careless words? Silence saves you from those pitfalls. It guards you from sins you may not even realize you are committing. It shields you from the regret of wishing you could take back words that cannot be unsaid. There is a saying that silence cannot be misquoted. And indeed, silence cannot be twisted. Silence cannot be taken out of context. Silence cannot be used against you. That is why the wise know when to speak and when to stay silent. Speaking truth at the right time is an act of courage, but remaining silent at the right time is an act of wisdom. Both are equally valuable and both require strength. The key is to know which moment calls for which response. Silence also allows you to listen, to truly listen. In the rush to speak, most people fail to hear. They miss the lessons hidden in the words of others. They miss the wisdom that can be gained from reflection. And they miss the guidance that comes from stillness. Silence opens the door to listening, and listening opens the door to understanding. Sometimes the answers you seek are already around you, but you cannot hear them until you quiet the noise inside. Silence then is not emptiness, it is a space for clarity. Consider also that silence can be an act of mercy. When someone wrongs you, you have every right to respond, to argue, to point out their faults. But when you choose silence, you give them space to reflect, to realize their mistake on their own, to grow without being shamed. Your silence can save a relationship that harsh words would have destroyed. Your silence can heal a heart that anger would have wounded. Your silence can maintain dignity where confrontation would have caused humiliation. In this way, silence becomes a gift not only for yourself but for others. There is also a silence between you and Allah, a silence where you do not speak but your tears flow, a silence where your lips are still but your heart is crying, a silence where you say nothing yet everything is heard. Because Allah hears the unspoken, He knows the unseen. He understands the language of your heart even when your tongue cannot find the words. That kind of silence is the most intimate form of communication. It is the silence of sujood, the silence of the night when the world sleeps, the silence of a heart whispering, my Lord, That silence is not weakness. It is the most powerful form of dua. When you will feel as though the ground beneath you has been shaken, when the people you thought would stand by you are nowhere to be found, and when the ones you trusted most become the very ones who let you down. It is in these moments that your heart whispers a question: who truly stands with me? And the answer that soothes the soul is this: if Allah is with you, then you are never alone. The presence of Allah in your life is not measured by the number of friends who clap for you or the voices that cheer you on, but by the tranquility that fills your chest when the entire world turns against you. That tranquility, that unexplainable calm, is a sign that your heart has learned reliance on the only one who never abandons, never forgets, and never betrays. When you recognize this, your entire perspective on life changes. You stop attaching your worth to people's opinions because you realize that the Creator's view of you outweighs the entire world. You stop chasing the approval of those who can only see your outer actions because you know that Allah sees your heart. You stop despairing when plans collapse because you know that behind every closed door is a hidden wisdom. This awareness lifts you above the noise of the world. It gives you the strength to walk away from arguments, to remain patient through trials, and to keep going even when others doubt you. Because deep inside, you know that the one who controls destiny has written something better for you. When you rely on Allah, you will begin to notice subtle signs of His help that others overlook. You will see how a difficulty that could have crushed you ends up strengthening you. You will realize how a rejection that broke your heart was in fact protection from harm you never saw. You will discover how a delay that frustrated you eventually leads you to something far greater. These are not coincidences, these are gentle reminders that Allah is defending you, guiding you, and planning for you in ways your mind cannot comprehend. Reliance on Him transforms setbacks into stepping stones, pain into purification, and loss into lessons. It allows you to walk through life with hope even when the path looks dark. One of the most profound effects of relying on Allah is that it frees you from the burden of controlling everything. We live in a world that constantly tells us to plan, to control, but the reality is, no matter how much we try, there will always be matters outside our control. People's hearts are not in our hands, the future is not in our sight, and success is not guaranteed by effort alone. When you accept this, you stop exhausting yourself in trying to manipulate life to your liking. Instead, you put in your effort, you make your best plans, but then you release the outcome to Allah. That release is not giving up, it is handing over the matter to the one who is far more capable. It is saying, I have done my part, now my Lord will take care of the rest. And when you live this way, your heart finds peace because it is no longer chained by anxiety about results. Think about the times you worried endlessly about something only for it to resolve itself in ways you never expected. Think about the times you thought you could not carry on, yet you found strength you didn't know you had. These moments are signs of divine help, whispers of mercy, and proofs that you were never left alone. To recognize them is to grow in gratitude, and gratitude itself becomes a form of reliance. Because the more you thank Allah for what He has done, the more you trust Him for what He will do. Reliance on Allah also transforms how you see people. Instead of expecting perfection from them, you realize that they are limited just as you are. You stop being shattered when someone fails you because your heart was never tied to them in the first place. Your expectations are with Allah. And when you receive good from people, you see it as a gift from Him. This shift saves you from disappointment, from bitterness, and from resentment. It helps you maintain healthier relationships because you stop demanding from people what only Allah can give. Your heart becomes lighter, your bonds become purer, and your interactions become more sincere. Now think of patience, because true reliance on Allah cannot exist without it. Patience is not just waiting, it is waiting with trust. It is bearing hardship with the belief that relief is on its way. It is enduring hurt with the conviction that justice belongs to Allah. Patience does not mean you feel no pain. It means you carry your pain with dignity, knowing that your tears are not wasted but are seen by the most merciful. Every time you choose patience over despair, you are proving your reliance on Allah. Every time you choose to forgive instead of retaliate, you are proving your trust in His justice. Every time you choose to keep moving forward despite the weight of your trials, you are proving that you believe His promise is true. Relying on Allah is not passive. It does not mean you sit back and wait for miracles without effort. It means you strive with all your might. But your heart is not attached to the outcome of that striving. You take the means, you use the opportunities, you do your part, but you know that success comes only from Allah. This balance between effort and trust is the essence of tawakkul. Too many people misunderstand it, thinking reliance means doing nothing. But true reliance is effort plus faith. It is planting the seed with your hands, watering it diligently, and then leaving the growth to Allah. There is also something beautiful about how reliance connects you to inner peace. Life will always throw storms your way, losses, betrayals, failures, sickness, but reliance gives you an anchor. Even when the waves toss you around, you remain rooted. You might bend, but you don't break, because you know that behind the storm is the one who can calm it with a single command. This inner peace cannot be bought, cannot be learned from books, and cannot be given by people. It comes only from living with trust in Allah. It is the peace that allows you to smile even when your eyes are filled with tears, to be hopeful even when the world looks hopeless, and to keep moving even when the path ahead is unclear. Look at how this reliance was lived by the prophets. When Musa stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind him, people panicked. But Musa said with certainty, "My Lord is with me, He will guide me." That was reliance. When Ibrahim was thrown into the fire, he declared his trust in Allah, and the fire became coolness. That was reliance. When Maryam felt the pangs of childbirth alone under the tree, her reliance was met with divine ease and provision. Every story teaches us the same truth: whoever relies on Allah will never be abandoned. Their circumstances may look impossible, but their faith makes the impossible possible. The same principle applies to us. Your trial might not be a sea parting or a fire cooling, but it could be a financial struggle, a broken relationship, a health issue, or a loss that feels unbearable. Whatever it is, reliance turns your pain into an opportunity for closeness to Allah. It shifts your focus from the size of your problem to the greatness of the one who can solve it. And when your heart makes that shift, the burden feels lighter, even if the situation itself hasn't changed yet. Sometimes reliance on Allah requires silence, not silence of the tongue, but silence of the heart. Silence from the noise of constant overthinking, silence from the anxiety of what if, silence from the self-doubt that paralyzes you. This silence is achieved through prayer, through remembrance, through surrender. When you bow your head in sujood, when you whisper His name, when you let your tears fall in the stillness of the night, you are silencing the chaos inside you, and in that silence, Allah fills you with a strength greater than words can describe. In the end, the greatest gift of reliance is that it teaches you to live with hope. No matter how heavy the trial, no matter how dark the night, no matter how long the wait, you live with the assurance that Allah's help is near. This hope is not a fragile wish, it is a firm conviction rooted in the promise of your Lord. And once your heart tastes this kind of reliance, you will never again be enslaved by fear of the future or regret of the past. You will walk with dignity, with patience, with resilience, because you know that the one who holds tomorrow is the same one who is holding you today.